They say every predator in Yellowstone walks on 4 legs, until the lightning flashes and you see one wearing your partner's face. Tonight, I'm trapped in a storm-blacked station with 2 mushroom-tripping kids and something that changes shape faster than the clouds. And it knows exactly how to open locked doors. You can work in a place for a couple of decades and still find ways to be surprised. I always thought my 20th summer season at Yellowstone had shown me every flavor of weird the backcountry could cook up. Rogue bison, meth lab campers, even that time a tourist tried to baptize himself in Grand Prismatic. Nothing, not even the winter, I pulled a frozen elk calf out of a geyser runoff, prepared me for the night the storm rolled in, carrying voices that didn't belong to anything human. My shift started ordinary enough. Mid-August heat, thunderheads piled beyond the Tetons, the air smelling of lodgepole pitch and ozone. Dispatch pinged every few minutes with lightning strike reports, so I made a slow loop along the southern trails, checking for stray hikers before the rain hit. That's when I spotted them, 2 college-age guys crouched near a fairy ring of dull brown mushrooms, giggling like they'd found pirate gold. Their red-rimmed eyes and the Grateful Dead patches on their packs told me exactly what they were after. I eased the truck to a stop. "Park's off limits for foraging," I called. They froze. One stuffed mushrooms into a plastic grocery sack. The other bolted the handful he already carried straight into his mouth, chewing like a panicked rabbit. I cuffed them anyway. Possession of psilocybe earns you a federal citation if I'm feeling merciful. Jail if I'm not. 20 minutes later, we were bouncing down the fire road toward the south entrance station, thunder growling behind us like a caged cat. The station is little more than a clapboard box, office up front, single holding cell in back for drunks and poachers. As I locked the kids inside, sheets of rain hammered the tin roof so hard conversation turned to mime. Power flickered. The landline died. My cell registered one useless bar. I told the boys, Rhett and Milo according to their IDs, that county deputies couldn't get through the washouts until morning. They'd ride out the storm with me. Milo, still peeking, stared past me at something only he could see and started to cry. An hour passed. Lightning strobed through the barred window of the cell like a stuttering camera flash. Between strikes, the building felt entombed in pitch darkness. That's when Rhett pressed his face to the bars and hissed, "Do you hear that?" At first I heard only rain. Then, soft, impossibly clear over the deluge, came a child's voice drifting through the black. "Mister, have you seen my mommy?" It floated along the eaves like smoke. Milo whimpered, saying they'd parked near a family with a little girl in a yellow slicker that afternoon. I told them their brains were still fried, and returned to my logbook. Yet the hairs on my forearms would not lie flat. The front door banged open a half hour later, letting in a waterfall and someone wearing our uniform. My partner, Ranger Ben Garland, should have been off duty in Grant Village, 20 miles north. He looked soaked raw, as though he'd crawled out of Yellowstone Lake. "Didn't think you'd brave this soup," I shouted. Ben grinned too wide. "Storm couldn't keep me away, partner." Something felt off. Ben's eyes were wrong, pupils blown huge, no iris showing. Chills rippled across my scalp. To test him, I asked, "How's your wife doing these days?" Ben has never been married. Everyone in the district knows his idea of commitment is a 6-pack and a fishing rod. "She's doing real well," he said without blinking. "Says hello." My pulse dumped ice into my veins. I excused myself, claiming my phone charger was in the truck, and stepped outside. Rain slapped my face like wet gravel. I sprinted to the rear wall, where the cell's tiny window glowed faintly. "Listen," I whispered to the silhouettes inside. "Something wearing Ben's skin is in there with you. When I give the word, dive through. I looped the truck's tow chain around the window bars, gunned the engine, and yanked. Screws screamed. The frame ripped free. Rhett and Milo clambered out. Lightning turned the yard white. Ben Thing burst from the doorway, jaw distending farther than bone allows. Rhett vaulted into the cab. Milo slipped in the mud. The creature's arms stretched like tar, lashing around Milo's waist, yanking him backward. His scream cut off as the thing's mouth descended. Instinct overrode terror. I floored the accelerator. Tires spit mud, and we fishtailed onto a service trail I knew by heart. Forest swallowed us, trees bending under wind that howled like artillery. Rhett shook beside me, pupils saucer-large from psilocybin and dread. I slapped him hard. "Trip's over, kid. We're in survival mode now." The radio hissed static. Headlights lit a curtain of water and nothing else. Fuel gauge hovered just above empty. I aimed for a limestone cave a mile off the trail. Black bear den in spring, but empty this late in season. "I'd rather wrestle a grizzly than that shape-stealing bastard," I muttered. Inside the cave, damp and rank, I zip-tied Rhett's wrists and ankles and duct-taped his mouth. Hallucinating liabilities tend to scream at exactly the wrong moment. I stood guard all night, listening to the storm choke itself silent. Only once did I hear footsteps outside. Too soft for a human, too deliberate for wildlife. They stopped at the mouth of the cave, then retreated into pre-dawn gloom. Dawn slogged in grey and dripping. I freed Rhett. He sobbed, convinced everything had been psychedelic nightmare, until I displayed the bent cell window bars still dangling from the chain. I had maybe a gallon of gas left, enough to limp to Canyon Junction's old Exxon. We emerged from the cave to find a man in REI rain gear, standing beside my truck. He said he'd gotten lost when the storm hit and followed tire tracks. I leveled my sidearm. "Keep your hands where I can see them," I said, then told him exactly what I'd seen back at the station. The stranger's face crumpled. "Please don't leave me," he begged, but desperation can masquerade as anything. I ordered Rhett into the truck and we roared off. We barely made half a mile before the brake pedal sank uselessly. The truck skidded sideways, smashed into a lodgepole, and died. Steam hissed from the hood. We stumbled out, hearts banging. The lost man emerged from the tree line unnaturally fast. He seized Rhett by the shoulders, then screamed, smoke rising from his palms, where they contacted the silver crucifix hanging from Rhett's neck. Skin bubbled like wax. Shapeshifter, I realized. It released Rhett, shrieking in a voice that belonged to the little girl, to Ben, to a dozen others. We sprinted the way we'd come, lungs searing, knowing the thing could outpace us, but hoping confusion bought seconds. Somewhere in that terror dash, pattern recognition clicked. Silver burned it. We needed more. Back at the ruined station, we ransacked drawers, souvenir coins, letter openers, filing cabinet handles. I rigged a snare trap from climbing rope and a ceiling beam. Exhaustion dragged at our limbs. Every crack of settling wood made Rhett flinch. As twilight bled through storm clouds, a plaintive voice outside whimpered, "Dude?" "Ranger, let me go. I'm hurt bad." It was Milo. Rhett's eyes filled. I warned him, but he insisted he could lure Milo beneath the trap. He stepped outside, choking up lines halfway between relief and grief. A shadow shuffled forward. When it crossed the tripwire, the rope yanked it into the rafters upside down. I rushed out, pressing the flat of a silver letter opener to its cheek. No burn. Confusion flickered across the captive's face, followed by pain as blood rushed to his head. "It's really him," Rhett cried. Against my better judgment, I cut the rope. Milo tumbled, coughing. He claimed the shapeshifter had tossed him aside to chase us. Seemed plausible. Seemed. We barricaded the doors, my vision tunneled with fatigue. I let the kids take watch and slumped in the office chair. Cell service blinked awake, 1 bar. A text from Ben, real Ben, hit my screen. They hunt in groups of 3. Only way to kill, sever heads. They lure by acting helpless or dumb. Once together, they're unstoppable. Stay alive. Cavalry en route. Ice flooded my gut. Helpless. Dumb. Minutes ago, Milo hadn't recognized obvious danger cues, babbled nonsense, acted concussed, exactly the performance the creatures used. And Silver hadn't burned him because it never had. That weakness was staged. I feigned searching the supply shed. In reality, I found a brush machete hunters confiscated last spring. When I returned, Milo sat alone near the wood stove. Rhett was in the restroom. I said, "Lost something?" Milo looked up, and in his eyes I saw bottomless night. I swung. The blade met flesh and bone, sailing through on pure adrenaline. Milo's head thudded to the floor, features distorting, skin slithering into grey fluid before my eyes. Rhett charged, screaming betrayal, and wrenched the machete from my grip. He swung at me wildly. We crashed into the map table, papers flying. He pinned me, blade raised. An arrow slammed through his skull from the doorway. He sagged. I seized the machete and completed the grim work of severing. His corpse melted, revealing a smaller, bonier shape, slick like something birthed rather than born. Ben, alive, bruised, eyes haunted, stepped inside with 3 men in camouflage, carrying recurves and bone-handled knives. "Took the liberty of calling specialists," he rasped. The hunters nodded grimly. Together we stalked into dawn fog to track the 3rd. The thing wore the face of the lost man, but when cornered, it cycled through a carousel of borrowed visages. Child, ranger, old woman, even a bison calf bawling for its mother. We did not hesitate this time. Heads roll, things die. By the time sunlight turned the lodgepoles gold, the forest was silent. The hunters salted and burned the remains, mumbling rites older than the park itself. I stood apart, rain-damp uniform heavy with blood and ash, and wondered how many stories like ours ended with missing persons reports and no answers. Rhett and Milo's real bodies were found a week later beneath a wind-fallen spruce, throats crushed. Official paperwork lists bear predation. Nobody wants shapeshifter rumors tanking tourist revenue. Sometimes, though, when night storms rattle the station windows and static creeps across the radio, I hear a little girl asking about her mommy, and I thumb the machete's worn grip and count every shadow twice. And if you decide to trip on mushrooms in my park, remember, the forest already has predators that like the taste of naive, helpless prey. They're not all on 4 legs. The night after the hunters left, paperwork kept me awake, incident forms thick as phone books, my pen shaking on each signature line. Regulations required a statement of force, a chain of custody for every confiscated weapon, a rationale for decapitation that would satisfy lawyers who have never smelled copper-rich blood on wet pine duff. I wrote the truth, line after line, knowing it would be redlined into fiction by morning. When I finally stepped outside, stars glittered like rifle sights above the still steaming pyres. Wind carried a sweet, strange perfume, sagebrush after rain, wood smoke, and a note of something metallic that reminded me of a dentist's drill. I followed it to the clearing where the 3 heads lay, already shrinking to leathery husks. Their mouths still moved, mouthing words in voices not their own, snippets of ranger radio chatter, a mother calling her child, Rhett singing off-key. I realized the creatures weren't obeying residual nerve twitches. They were listening, repeating every sound within a mile. Learning. Even dead, they studied us. I crushed the skulls one at a time with the heel of my boot. The echoes stopped. 2 days later, I hiked out to the cave to retrieve the zip ties and tape we'd left behind. Inside, claw marks scored the limestone walls, 3 parallel gouges spaced like human fingers, yet deeper than any steel. Something else had waited outside that night, testing the rock while we shivered inside. Whatever it was, it still roams these ridges. I carry silver now anyway, though I know better. Weighted handle on the machete, silver coin welded into the pommel, so I never forget how close misdirection came to killing me. The mountains teach brutally simple lessons. What you think you know will get you eaten, and storms always return. Next August thunderclouds are already piling beyond the horizon, and somewhere up in that black timber, a voice is practicing my name, trying it on like a new face.